audience. Welcome to the Work Comp Weekly.
Hey, everybody. Work Comp Weekly.
I am your host, Dan Mora. Directly across from me,
Frank Smithson here.
how's it going, Frank?
It's going good. Life is grand. How about you?
Yeah, really good. I have a trip with my daughter next week. I told my kids when they were really young that I would take them anywhere in the world when they graduated high school.
Sweet.
But I didn't really think that was going to happen at some point.
Where are you going?
Italy.
Nice.
Yeah. So my daughter is an artist. She's very talented. So we're going to, it's going to be amazing.
That is so cool. How long?
It's like a 10-day tour. We're doing a tour because I don't have to worry about booking all the stuff, and we get to see a lot of things. So.
Yeah. That sounds fun. I'm jealous.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous, but it's gonna be great.
Yeah, sounds like it.
So I'm thinking of words of wisdom for my daughter. In fact, I think I'm gonna do write in a journal the whole time, but specifically to her regarding kind of my perspective of who she is and who she's becoming. Kind of cool.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. Word of wisdom there is journaling, period. I think that's a great way to do some reflection.
I think that my words of wisdom partially is the focus of this trip is not, I'm trying to not make it about me. Mm-hmm. I'm really trying to focus, and I think over time, that's how I've been orienting myself, becoming just less selfish as a person.
Yeah, servant leadership.
Yeah. But this is going to be fun. It's going to be real fun.
I like it.
Get to see some cool stuff. Yeah.
Sweet.
Okay, let's get into our news story. So you have one. Why don't you take that one first?
Sure. So in workers' compensation in California, California court sides with employers in regards to COVID and bringing it home. So there was a case where injured worker got COVID on the job site, went home and brought it to his family, and they contracted the COVID as well. And this COVID was pretty significant. Like the individual that was the injured worker ended up on a respirator and all that type of stuff. And he was able to be awarded, but they said, nope, we're not allowing you to bring that home. So I personally think that that's a good thing. It could have left, a lot of other situations where, what if the family gets stress, from a work comp injury, and now all of a sudden that's going to be, the responsibility of the employer. Things like that could have gone down a crazy rabbit hole. So,
yeah. Okay. I've got a couple other news flashes. This one's from Iowa, and there was a study done that showed that a change in the law in 2017 was had detrimental effects of reclassifying shoulder injuries, resulting in a dramatic decrease in compensation for injured workers. It showed that there was a staggering 73.2 decrease in compensation for injured workers based on this classification. They called it the cold shoulder report. So take a look at that. I think that's kind of interesting. They reclassified from body as a whole, BAAW, injuries to specifically scheduling, shoulders as opposed to, so they split it out as opposed to making a whole body type of thing. Interesting. That's a significant.
Don't get your shoulder injured in Iowa.
There's hope now. The other story I had here was from goldrushcam.com. Sierra Sun Times is where this is from, but this is a California Insurance Commissioner issues new lower workers' compensation benchmark rate due to growing economy. This is July 12th in Sacramento. So the insurance commissioner issued a new and decreased rate for workers' compensation insurance that reflects California's growing economy, lowers the benchmark rate to 1.46 per 100 of payroll, for workers' compensation insurance, representing a 2.6% decrease from last year, which will go into effect September 1st, 2023. So it's lowering the cost of workers' compensation insurance.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. So on our main topic here, we're talking about bills in California, and there's a lot. So stick with me. And I know this stuff is boring for some, but I think this is still interesting. The first one, SB 697. This was sponsored by Hurtado. That started off as a required study. The DIR required the study to understand the viability and regulatory steps needed to implement a value of care reimbursement system for workers' compensation. We covered this a couple of weeks ago, and the difference between the RBRVS and the which is the resource-based relative value system. So valuing a case as in total as opposed to injuries, specific injuries. So there was a study that the Senate bill proposed to study how that would look. It was completely gutted and amended.
Okay.
And the amendment changes that this bill, it's completely different. It completely changed. It turned into what's called a 2-year bill, so they want to let it marinate. But listen to this. The bill would require the administrative director to adopt regulations to establish and maintain a secure, searchable, and interactive internet portal to provide access to physicians participating in a medical provider network. So this bill,
that's nice.
Completely gutted and amended is the term that they use. Turned into a 2-year bill where they're proposing to have an NPN improvement.
That sounds
transparency.
Clear single portal with all that information would be fantastic. I think people have been wanting that for a long time.
Yeah. What this indicates to me, and I could be wrong, but this is me extrapolating this out, that they're okay with the system as it is, and they're okay with the general idea of NPN.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they just want to improve it. That opposed to a complete, reform is my take on this.
Pluses and minuses of each. Any thoughts there?
Most people, when they complain about NPNs, it's that they're dictated to stay in the NPN, as opposed to finding their own resources. That's the applicant perspective, that they don't like being told what to do.
Yeah,
is kind of how it.
Yeah, they want to seek their own.
Yeah, and I've also heard that they don't like it to be efficient because it's the lack of efficiency allows them to get outside of the NPN whenever they want in some cases. Okay. So nobody really likes it as it is. Very difficult to navigate. This is
fixing the navigation issue more specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
So what would that look like? Faster treatment?
Theoretically, faster treatment, just less disputes on doctors' disputes in general. Like,
I can see a lot of technology being built around the idea of the NPN if there's a lot better database to go off of.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. Okay, so a couple of other bills. There is the Senate Committee on Public Employment and Retirement on Wednesday passed AB 1145, which creates a post-traumatic stress disorder presumption for nurses and medical providers working in the state. So that was something that we talked about in the past, or this bill, and it just is a assumption, a presumption that when a nurse or a medical provider is claiming PTSD, the defense has to defend against that, as opposed to the applicant having to prove that up. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah, it's a presumption.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I think that's good. It's probably good for the system. It's a precedent that maybe could get further along. Specifically, actually, AB 621 adds state firefighters to the list of public employees
Okay.
who are exempt from certain limits on death benefits. So that's a good one as well.
Interesting. How do you feel about different occupations being what's going to create those exemptions?
Yeah, those carve outs.
Yeah. Like, why can't I have that in my role?
You know, on the very in the core of me says I don't like these exceptions. The way that they go about legislating, and AB5 is a good example. That was the independent contractor bill. They basically removed
And independent contractors is certain independent contractors,
exactly.
Right?
So they did the exact same thing. They passed this. You can't be an independent contractor bill except for these areas.
So
And
weird.
I think that the problem that I have with it at the core is that it creates complexity that's unnecessary.
Yeah.
You know, and could they have thought of a more universal way of doing it? I think yes, but I think politically, the bureaucracy that is California makes it so difficult to do that.
Yeah.
Makes it really, really difficult. So at the core, I don't like it, but I think honestly, this is probably the only way that these types of things happen. You have these special interest groups like the firefighters, the nurses and medical providers, and they ask for those exemptions. And
So with what is it, AB 623, the PTSD presumption?
yeah,
I'm curious what the defense thinks about that. Like, I know that they're worried about fraudulent work comp claims, things like that. Hey, people are exaggerating the injury. Now you have, hey, there's an assumption that you're going to have this PTSD. People are going to jump on that and try to carry it. And there's compensation that's associated with that.
I think it's such a fraction of the market that the defense and insurance side is like, meh, you know, okay, we'll let that one go through.
Sure.
And two, a lot of these special interests. I say that, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but nurses, doctors, firefighters, they usually are within the what's it called, the carve outs. They're not in the general pool of workers' compensation. They have their own, usually self-insured system.
Sure.
That already allows all that, a lot of different exemptions, and they handle the cases completely different.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So another one, Senate Bill 636 requires some utilization review providers to be licensed in California. So that's another bill that the Assembly Insurance Committee passed. So the Assembly Insurance Committee passed SB 623, the firefighter PTSD, SB 636. And SB 631. 631 is it's a study of gender-based disparities in the state comp system. Also, Senate Bill 391, which extends a skin cancer presumption to game wardens and park rangers. So along the same lines, game wardens, park rangers.
Because they're outdoors more frequently with long sleeve shirts and big hats. I don't know. These presumptions to me are a little rough. It's interesting.
Kind of political, to say.
Follow the money,
to say the least. Yeah.
The 636 one, that was
that's
requires physicians and psychologists who conduct utilization reviews for private employers are licensed by the Medical Board of California. So already they're physicians that are the ones that are doing the UR, but now there needs to be like an additional certification. Like, I'm curious why.
Must be licensed in California.
Oh, that's sorry. We did talk about that one previously. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, licensed by the Medical Board of California.
Of California, not like a doctor from out of state.
Right,
Yeah.
Which
I remember that. I like that one.
This is great.
Yeah.
I believe, Maximus, the MPN, not the MPN, excuse me, the IMR doctors are usually out of state, is what I'm hearing. So they're not California state licensed. So this is kind of a win, maybe moving the needle towards getting even hopefully the IMR doctors on medical board licensed California.
That'd be good. I think that giving them better opportunity to make decisions based on the locale and the laws we have around here.
Yeah. That one in particular, when an insurance company steps in to deny a surgery or any medical treatment plan, it can be a nightmare scenario for the patient. This is the sponsor, Senator Dave Cortese out of Campbell. Medical treatment is stressful enough without insurance stepping in to deny coverage. Mm-hmm. If insurance companies feel compelled to perform a utilization review, which we know is routine, it's just what they do, SB 636 would at least make sure the doctor review is licensed. The review doctor is licensed and accountable in California. So that's good, right? Mm-hmm. This gender, so 631 is the committee voted 10-1 to pass, would direct the DWC to contract with the University of California, Berkeley to study potential gender disparities in the comp system. Yeah. Comparison between genders in different industries and an assessment of the monetary value of benefits, differences in benefits and rates, which claims are denied. So yeah, we don't like bias. We should figure that out.
Yeah, I just did an entire hour training session on biases for my team. It was pretty entertaining. We take a look at discovery and understanding how we're going to develop products, and everybody has biases, right?
Yeah.
They're unconscious. You're not aware of them, but thinking about them and understanding what they are and trying to recognize them is kind of one of the first steps. I left everybody with a lead behind for those out there that are ever interested in biases. Harvard has been doing a study for, I don't know, I think it's going on more than 10 years now, where you can go and you can test your own biases. And I think having like awareness that, yeah, I do have biases is a good step to overcoming them. So it's interesting. I don't think it ever hurts to take a look. Hopefully there isn't. I feel like the work comp system is so mathematically based that it'd be pretty hard to create biases in that system, but you never know.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. When we still do personality profiles, and we use Myers-Briggs, right? And we still use Myers-Briggs thoroughly, a lot of experience for Myers-Briggs in the world with that type of application of understanding personality profiles. Mm-hmm. I remember looking at our roster of and in one of the columns was all the Myers-Briggs, which is 4 letters, right? The last one is whether you are a perceiver or a judger. And nobody wants to be told that they're judgmental, right? What was so interesting.
I was a hyper judger, by the way. I was like, as high as you could score on the judging side, that was me.
No.
No way. I know, everybody's surprised.
What was hilarious to me was it was like 70% of all of our roster fell into the J, to the judger versus the perceiver. And I was like, I guess we have to kind of admit that this is just maybe part of us, maybe part of our strength. And I know I like to use the word discerning as opposed to judging. Same word, less negative connotation around. Sure. But I thought that was kind of it was interesting to kind of poke fun at everybody. Had a bunch of judgers, but also to say, well, how is that applicable for us as a company?
I goes back to thinking of change your questions, change your life.
Yeah.
Right. The judger path. We were like focused on making sure people were aware, are you putting yourself in a judger's paradigm? And if so, how to recognize that, stop it, and then move towards the learner path. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Great book for everybody if you want some real simple reading and, improve your social skills.
Yeah.
Change your questions, change your life. Yeah.
Marley Adams, I think, is the author. Okay. Yeah. Fantastic book. Yeah. So, to wrap this up on these bills, I've been musing for a couple of years that there's a reform package on its way.
And not yet, obviously.
Yeah.
Nothing earth shattering.
No, kind of what I'm hearing is everybody's fairly happy. What happened in 12 was interesting to watch. I happened to be down at the Capitol doing lobbying for that bill, or to quash that bill, 863. And what I found out, what I understood about politics, what I came to understand about politics in that time was that the bill was a trading chip for other areas in the government. The governor was like, no, we're not gonna remove this bill. I'm not gonna veto it because it has this trade chip in regards to the employers and to the labor, the unions and the labor market. So, so far, as what I'm viewing, there's not been a compelling, trade chip necessary for employers and or the labor market.
So does that mean things are working?
That's the rhetoric that we're hearing. That's the rhetoric that I hear from labor, and the rhetoric I hear from now employers. We just covered that news article. Laura, the insurance commissioner, just gave a discount to employers. But maybe, I don't know, there's been this 10-year cycle of work comp reform.
Yeah.
Maybe this is like a long tail type of situation where we're going to go now 15 years without a comp reform. And we're talking a lot about AI. We're talking about the reduction of injury, and then the response to injury, and how possibly even, universal medicine. We'll see how this all plays out.
Yeah, especially in California, that's a very likely possibility. I think when those types of things happen outside of workers' compensation, it'll create more tension for change in workers' compensation. We may see, reform come a lot sooner than we think if other things happen.
Sure.
There's a lot of things that need to get done in California. So maybe workers' comp isn't the number one priority right now.
That's what I'm hearing,
Yeah.
Well, any final thoughts on that?
No, I think pretty well wraps it up. I'd love to hear from our audience what their thoughts are. If there's any bills that we missed that they think are important to discuss, like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah.
All of the above.
Yeah, right on. Well, pleasure again, Frank.
Thanks, Dan. Have a good one.
See ya.
Bye.